So I've got several spiritual teachers. One of them is Adyashanti, who's a Buddhist teacher from out in California. One of them is Pema Chodron, who's a Tibetan Buddhist teacher. But my number one is Rabbi Rami Shapiro. And if you haven't heard of Rabbi Rami Shapiro, you need to introduce yourself to him. He's written a number of books. We brought him in for a workshop in June on his book Recovery, the spiritual path to recovery. But this book, this excerpt is coming from a book, Embracing the Divine Feminine. And it's a very short book, and it all relates to the Song of Songs, in the Hebrew and Christian Bibles. And it's a very erotic poem. In fact, it blows me away that it even made it in when they were choosing what's going to stay and what's going to go. But there's a reason. And Jewish mysticism, or Kabbalah, teaches that when male energy and female energy join together in a loving act, notice I didn't say man and woman, but male energy and female energy, whatever is the predominant in the two partners, it's called what's a theurgic union. It's the synergistic manifestation of God from that union is almost unbelievable. And so this book is all about that. But to take that closing line in that song, even my wisdom knows the mystery, we're going to kind of transition. Did I get that right, that last line? Yeah. I'm going to transition to my theme is the divine feminine and wisdom. So here's an excerpt from his book.
For me, the Song of Songs is a celebration of the human relationship with wisdom. The woman in the song is Chakra, Lady Wisdom. The man in the song, Lady Wisdom's lover, is the seeker of wisdom. But be careful. When I say that the seeker is the man in the song, I do not mean to say that only men may be seekers. On the contrary, wisdom calls out to all humanity, Proverbs 8, verse 1, and invites everyone to her feast of instruction and insight, from Proverbs 9, 2 through 6. Seekers are not defined by gender. This is why I shy away from masculine terminology in my translation and commentary, and speak instead her identity or lack thereof are the seeker.
Phenomenal. So what I want to talk about is also a teaching by Rami Shapiro in his CD series, soon to be book, How to Be a Holy Rascal. And we're bringing him back next summer to Atlanta for a Holy Rascal revival. And it sounds true as the CD company. You can buy it. It's 8 CDs. It's marvelous. But this is his teaching on the Garden of Eden story, right? And it's right out of the text, and so many of us have read a lot of misinterpretations on it. So the first thing I want to read is from chapter 3:1. Where is that? Okay, here we go. It's actually page 20, or verse 25. So the Hebrew is, Vayehu shanahem arumim ha'adam v'ishto v'lo yivashashu. Okay? Now, the word I want to focus on in all of that is arumim. The Hebrew word arumim. So I'm going to read this line and I'm going to go back to something. Translation is, the two of them were naked, the man and his wife, yet they felt no shame. Okay, so just remember that arumim, meaning coming from the root word arum, means to be naked. So now I definitely want to go back. We'll come over to here. Okay, so here we go. Now we're talking about the serpent, okay? Bahanachash haya arum mikol hayat, and other stuff. Here's the important thing about what I just said. Now the serpent, right? The shrewdest of all the wild beasts that God had made. The same word was used, arum. And yet all of our Bibles mistranslate that word arum, because I just said it means naked. Right? This interpretation said the serpent was the shrewdest. if you look in a Christian Bible, it's going to say something else, a conniving, something like that. Total misinterpretation of the original Hebrew. So what could this nakedness mean? Let's go back to the line before. The two of them were naked, the man and the woman, yet they felt no shame. So this was pure vulnerability, right? Pure vulnerability, totally naked. This is who I am. It reminds me of a song back in the middle 90s by a band named Stained called Outside. I'm on the outside, I'm looking in, I can see through you, see to the real you, because inside you're ugly like me. I can see through you into the real you. I heard that song the first time I pulled my car over. That young man nailed it. And what he's saying is, we're human beings, we're all imperfect. Michael sang it in the lyrics in that song. We all have to come to terms with who we are. There's a shadow. And if you want to know what your shadow is, just think of the things you hate about other people. Think about a particular type of behavior you would never do. That's your shadow. Now, certain things, obviously, I don't want to go out and murder people. But you know what I mean. There are certain things that we just... So we all have that. And we just need to be naked and vulnerable and feel no shame to our nakedness. So now, why would the word be the serpent was naked? Well, let's look at the serpent, right? So the Hebrew word for serpent, nachash, in Jewish mysticism, numerology is really big. So we look at Hebrew words and what numbers they add up to. So this word nachash adds up to the number 358. Okay? There's also a Hebrew word Moshiach, which adds up to the number 358. And you know what Moshiach means? Messiah. So there's a relationship between the serpent and the Messiah. Okay, I don't believe in a Messiah. I believe in a messianic age, a time of the highest consciousness where literally the lion will lie with the lamb. That's just my own personal theology. So let's look at what this can possibly mean. So the serpent, yet, is something we fear, yet will actually liberate us with wisdom. Right? That's the 358 being Moshiach, Messiah. This highest consciousness time when it's pure wisdom. When all of us are plugging into pure wisdom. If we just take time to discern and face our fear and face our shadow, only then will wisdom be liberating. So how does the serpent liberate? Who does he offer the apple to? It wasn't an apple, by the way. The apples didn't exist there. It was probably a pomegranate or some fruit. Of course, it's all metaphor in my eyes. I don't believe in any of this stuff. It's true. So let's look at the metaphor. So the serpent, Nachash, offers fruit to who?
Eve.
Right, Eve first, the woman, right? And I'm going to do a little bit of translation. So the serpent says, did God really say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman replied, we may eat of the fruit of the other trees of the garden. It is only about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, you shall not eat of it or touch it, lest you die. And the serpent, remember his name, whose numerology adds up to Messiah, said to the woman, you're not going to die, but God knows that as soon as you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like divine beings who know good and bad. Okay? So let's think about that. So she looked at it, she saw that, it says here, saw that the tree was good for eating and a delight to the eyes. So that doesn't say she just took the fruit and ate it. Right? She took the time to look at the tree. Right? It's a really beautiful tree. I never I know we've been kind of walking around this thing, and there's this tree in the middle, but it really is a beautiful tree. And look at that fruit. Look at the color of the fruit, the luster of the fruit. She was being very intentional and very discerning before she actually ate it. When the woman saw that the tree was good and the tree was desirable as a source of wisdom, that comes right out of here, the Chachma, she took of its fruit and ate. So this time had to pass before she actually took it. But now, she offers it to her husband. And what does he do? She also gave some to her husband and he ate. Didn't think about it, didn't look at the tree, didn't look at the fruit, there was no discerning. Okay? All part of the divine plan. Why? Because it's the struggle of the human being to mature until we attain wisdom. So wisdom, in Jewish mystical teaching also, we're not supposed to start studying mystical teachings until we're the age 40. Unfortunately, they said male, which is garbage, of course, married, and I forgot what the fourth one was. But let's just look at those three, right? Age 40, in partnership. Why do you think that was so? Go back 2,000 years. When you were 40, what happened in life? Say that again?
You died.
You were pretty much close to the end, right? You buried your parents, you've had children, you probably have grandchildren. All right? Because you probably had children at 16, right? You probably became a grandparent at 32. And now you're finally at the age where you have enough life experience, you've experienced the pain of life, you've experienced the joys of life, and only now are you ready for this wisdom. So she took the time necessary in order to really gather the wisdom of the fruit. But he just took it. So who gets expelled out of the garden? Right, of course. So let's read it. Of course, I've lost my place. And God said, now that the man has become like one of us, knowing good and bad, what if he should stretch out his hand and take from the tree? So God banished him from the Garden of Eden. Didn't say them. Banished him from the Garden of Eden. He drove the man out and stationed east of the Garden of Eden the cherubim, the angels, with a fiery, ever-turning sword to guard the way to the tree of life. He wasn't banished. Right? We all learned it was both, right? It wasn't. Go back and look at your Bibles. The Hebrew clearly says him, and the English translation of this one does. So, of course, woman blames, when God says, why did you eat that? She says, well, the serpent made me do it. So even those engaged in attaining wisdom will often blame others for the obstacles that show up, because that's the human condition, right? It's really hard for us right out of the gate to take responsibility, right, for the obstacles. All right, there's an obstacle. Remember what I said earlier? You take an existential risk by declaring yourself a non-dualist, because that means you can no longer blame God when bad stuff happens, and you can have gratitude and should have gratitude for everything. But as I said, because my house was spared doesn't mean God picked me out for good and my neighbor's tree fell on their house. So all that has to be given up. And all that's left is just dealing with the consequences of what happens in life. And that's actually a Hindu teaching as well. So these punishments that God said, you're going to do this, you're going to be pained in childbirth, you're going to, the sweat of your brow, blah, blah, blah. He's just explaining the natural consequences of living. Right? The writers of the story knew what was going on biologically in the world. When women had babies, they hurt. Right? When men worked in the fields, they sweated. So it was just the same thing. But now the clothes, right? They were naked, arum, and they felt no shame. But now they felt shame. Okay? So this sort of is like the transition from childhood to adulthood, where I don't know where this point happens, but we all know this. At a certain point, every life is a big science experiment. Kids are out touching things and doing things and trying things. They don't care about failing. They don't care about falling down. But something happens and all of a sudden become very self-conscious. Don't care about how we look. Maybe it's puberty. I don't know. But all of us start worrying about failures and everything. It switches. So that's what this represents. As they reach the point now as human beings, very normal, and having to deal with shame issues and fear issues. But only man is exiled, and then woman joins outside the garden, metaphorically, to now help man awaken to find true wisdom and eternal life of enlightenment. So Eve is the mother of all the living, and also it represents the Great Awakening. And Chachma, the Hebrew word that Nancy mentioned, Lady Wisdom, when we find her, she would lead us in ways of the world and back to Eden, back to the Garden of Eden, which is metaphoric for the highest consciousness we can possibly reach. Wise, nurturing, and compassionate. So we're all part of the whole. Through teachings of the Divine Feminine, all texts of love, nurturing, relating, compassion, and kindness. And we all have these energies. And that is the goal. So what the teaching is telling us is to celebrate the Divine Feminine. Look for the female energy. And we all have male and female energy in us. And for those of us men in the room, is we have to start to integrate that female energy that was socialized out of us growing up in our culture. You have to own it. And for women who already have that female energy, they need to integrate and own their masculine energy. So that when we're fully integrated, only then can we attain wisdom. Any questions? Comments? And one of my favorite authors says that women can guide their men two ways: gently or with knives. And you get better results with guidance. So guys, listen to the women in your life. Or those with masculine energy, listen to those with feminine energy in your relationships, because that's where the wisdom comes from.